Hi Tracy, I want to thank you for sending in your material for testing on our clicker die cutting presses. I've cut a couple of samples here just to get the feel of it and see what we can do here. This is a pattern that I cut out with one of our other dies. It's got a little curve here. This is the die I used. It's a steel rule die. It's about the same amount of lineal inches I think that's going to be on your die, even though it's not quite the right shape. Now this one has a few crease blades in it, which is mainly for cardboard to crease it so that you can fold it up, but this we're not going to worry about that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to test it on the 700 press first. Now what I'm going to do is lay your material down on our cutting board, and then I'm going to take the die and I'm going to set the die right on top of the material, just like this. And what I found out with these two cuts is that if you put a piece of paper, just a piece of copy paper underneath, you get a little bit cleaner cut on it. But what I'm going to do right now is demonstrate it without the paper, and that way you can see the difference. Okay, now as you can see, as I'm pulling this out of the fabric, it's got a little bit of a spot in there that doesn't really cut as well, and it gives you a little bit of a frayed edge. See the difference? Now what I'm going to do here is take this and pull it out again, and you get some strings on it. Now what the difference between the paper, if you take a piece of sacrificial paper and put underneath here, because this fabric is soft, it makes a big difference in the way it cuts. What I'll do is I'll put the paper under, put your material down, and the die back again on top. We'll slide it in. And usually you hear a small crunch. When you hear that little crunch, that means it's cut out, and it cuts out a lot cleaner. You don't have the really rough edges around the outside as much. So that was this fabric. Now, and you can see it cuts down in there, and you can see the little strings of the fabric on there. Now when you have a sharp blade, you're not going to have quite this much either. These dies are kind of old, and we use them for a lot of testing. So what I'm going to do now is I'll try a clicker die, which is a different type of die. These are what we call our clicker dies. These are more like a cookie cutter type die that we manufacture here. Now we don't manufacture these steel rule die blades. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold this fabric over, and we're going to cut 2 layers at a time with the clicker die here. Now the only difference between the steel rule die and the clicker die is the thickness of your cutting board, which I'll show you right here. The 2 different thicknesses. This is for the steel rule dies, because the die is a little thinner. This is for the clicker dies, which are 1 1/4 inch high. So I'll lay that down. We'll put your material on top, and we'll slide it right in here. Turn the board around. Slide that in. And as you can see, the clicker dies do not give you a good cut on the material. It is really rough cut. So that's why I suggest the steel rule die for this type of fabric. Now, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and we'll switch the boards back. And we're going to use the steel rule die again on your other fabric. Now this fabric may be the same as the other, so we're going to use a piece of sacrificial paper. You can just use any copy paper that will work. And as you can see, it cuts it out a lot cleaner. You still get a few little dusty strings on it, but it gives it a nice, the pattern is nice and clean, and it gives it a little notch all the way around. That's your yellow fabric. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do the same thing with the other two types of fabric you sent. This one is a little bit thicker. Now, I'm not sure how many parts you want to cut out at one time, but there's a, we'll go ahead and do the same thing with this. And use your sacrificial piece of paper here. Slide that in. And this one cuts out a little bit cleaner. This is the pattern that we're using still. As you can see, cuts out around the edges, nice and neat. Now what I'll do, this is your thickest fabric right here. And this looks to be a laminated fabric, doubled up. So, and this is very, very spongy, so this is definitely going to need some kind of backer on here. So I'll lay that down on here, and we will set the die down on the material. Well, it looks like I'm not going to be able to get that one quite cut up right because there's not enough inches on the blade. There's not enough material there to actually get. Maybe I can get it. Let's see. Oh yeah. Yeah, that one cut out very nicely also. If you can see the pattern. All the way down, cut it out very cleanly. And like I said, you know, with this type of fabric, this little piece of copy paper is all you need to make sure you get a nice clean cut out of it. Now, I'll send you this video and we'll discuss it and see what other options you want to do. Thank you.